feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Friday afternoon. It's September 26th, and we are wrapping up the final week before Wolves training camp begins next week, and we're doing that today with Kyle Tyge. John and Jace and Chris and Britt all came on earlier this week, and we spent those episodes talking about how this team kind of sees itself internally, what their belief is internally, what they need to do internally to have a successful season. So for today, Kyle and I are going to kind of try to flip that. We're going to talk about what the perception of this Wolves team is externally. We're going to ask, are they being viewed like a team that went to the conference finals the last two seasons? And spoiler alert, they're not. So we'll talk about why and what parts of that do and don't make sense to us. To get the outside perspective, Kyle and I pulled a lot of the odds out there about the Wolves, not only win totals, but also awards. And just kind of what those markets are looking like. And of course, we're going to also highlight some of our favorite picks and bets. So how the Wolves are being perceived by the rest of the NBA and some interesting Wolves bets with Kyle Tyge coming up next. Let's go.
Hey, yeah.
All right, we are now joined by Kyle Tyge. Kyle, summer's over. Media day is on Monday. You're coming to town for it. I feel like the last two pods we did together a few weeks back, this felt very distant. It's here. Are you ready now?
It literally is like the start of school, right? Where it's like, it's coming, the dates, but you kind of enjoy as many days as possible. And then you wake up one day and your dad's like, it's 6:30 a.m. You got to get on the bus. And that's what happened this week. I mean, between Britt had 4 different publications with Finch and John Krasinski had an awesome thing over at The Athletic today on Julius Randle. Chris wrote a book. Jace is covering the Ryder Cup for us online. I painted a garage. So it's all here. And then even like some of the bigger news with Alan Horton, who I think we're going to have on the pod next week. It's just all of a sudden flooding in, tree jerseys, all chaos. And it starts on Monday. So I'm excited. I also want to acknowledge that we're doing this the morning of September 26th. It is a Friday before media day. We don't know what could happen this weekend. And we have to say that because last year at this time, Conley Towns was traded for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo.
Yeah, at least we're not both going on like a trip this weekend.
Yeah, I cleared my schedule now before media day.
Man. Okay, so we do this type of episode every year where it's like ostensibly looking at the betting odds, podcast, right? Where the Wolves win total set at all that other stuff, awards and all that. And then we talk about which ones bets we think are good values. And I know like the term bet is like triggering for people and they're like, oh, turn this off. What a betting market is in theory, right, is setting a number that the same amount of people would take more than, and the same amount of people would take less than. So it's kind of like a consensus ranking, of teams. Again, in theory, we have some specific numbers and stuff that you like, but I want to just start by talking about what, whether it's the odds specifically or not, just people outside of Minnesota. I want to talk about what the perception of the Wolves are this year. What are the Dane and Kyle of a different state thinking about, or that follow another team thinking about this Minnesota Timberwolves team? And, kind of how judgmental is it? I was thinking about how Atlanta, when they went to the conference finals a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, you went there, but I don't think we're going to be seeing you anytime soon. And I feel like there's a little bit of that energy around the Wolves, even though they have gone to the conference finals 2 seasons in a row. So it's hard to say, but what do you feel like the outside perception is by fans or media elsewhere of the Wolves?
I think it's similar to what the state typically gets thrown into in terms of flyover country. I think the Timberwolves are kind of like flyover country for the NBA. You asked me, what does Kyle from Virginia think about the Timberwolves? And I would say that, right? Like, it's not sexy to do season previews about a team that is leaning into continuity. And everyone is using the C word, right? Like Finch used it with Britt. Matthew Caldwell's using it as the new CEO. Mark and Alex as the owners of the Timberwolves and Lynx now, like they use it. So when you see a team's just kind of running it back, you're like, maybe I can just republish and repost last year's season preview. And they're not the Rockets, right? I mean, the Rockets had the Van Vliet thing recently, but like they traded for KD, and the Thunder won a title and kept everyone, and they're going to be even better. And then again, I just think the Nuggets far and away had the best offseason. So, and then that's before you get into like the major market stuff of like the Lakers, who got completely trounced by Minnesota in 5 games. Their, I guess, biggest acquisition was to get like DeAndre Ayton. But again, they're the Lakers. So you see them in some of the stuff we talk about. And again, this isn't a gambling pod, but just using those kind of data points, like this is what, national people or smart people that are plugged into the league think. So yeah, flyover country. I think people are like, yeah, they made the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row, which is, more than Atlanta did that one time. But all of the focus, all of the attention is back on Luka and the Lakers, Jokic and the Nuggets, KD and the Rockets, and then, whatever can or the Thunder entering a dynasty window. So in a lot of people's minds, they're 5th or 6th, right, in the West. And that's kind of probably something that internally they love. Is I've never known how this team handles high expectations, and we'll see this year because I think they should have high expectations, but I think they like being an underdog. That seems like a mentality that Anthony Edwards would really embrace.
Yeah, the betting market does not see them to be a 50-win team this season, which they weren't,
crazy.
Last year. They're betting on the continuity, run it back. Basically the same sort of thing. And 49.5 when I looked at FanDuel was what the win total for them was, which is the same as the Lakers. So it's OKC at 62.5, Houston at 54.5, Denver at 53.5, and then Minnesota and the LA Lakers at 49.5. So that's 3 teams in the West that the public believes will win more regular season games than the Wolves will. And then if you like extrapolate it out to the really big goal, which is the championship, the Wolves have the 9th best odds to win the championship. OKC is above them in the first spot, Cleveland, then Denver, then New York Knicks, Lakers, Rockets, Magic, Clippers, then the Wolves there. I get the win total one, I think we've talked about it. Now this Houston thing's a little weird, but I would have them behind OKC and Denver, for sure. I would have them in a tier with Houston and the Lakers and the Clippers. That all makes sense to me. It's a little curious to me, and maybe this is representative of the public perception of the ceiling that the public seems to see on this Wolves team. They see them as maybe a team that could do a little something in the playoffs, but the odds that they win a championship are seen as very distant, even compared to other Western Conference teams. I don't get why, even if I agree that the Wolves and Clippers are similar caliber win total teams, I don't get why they have better championship odds. I don't get why the Lakers have significantly better championship odds. I don't know, maybe that's LA, whatever, some of that. But it is that stood out to me more than I get 49.5. Injuries could happen. That's all kind of baked in. I think the Wolves will probably be around that range. It stood out to me how long they see the odds to be of coming out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I
winning the championship.
I actually think it's kind of oil and water, those two gambling things or whatever, but those two kind of data points, because when you're betting futures, a lot of the times, again, like the big markets, they do just kind of decrease the odds a little bit, because that probably every late September on a payday Friday, Lakers fans are just throwing money on their team to win the finals, right? So you do want to you don't want to have the Lakers ever at 20-1 as long as they have Luka Doncic on the team. I think the one that's far more interesting, and you said you kind of get it, I actually don't, is the projected win total. I know you had a number there at 49.5, like at DraftKings this morning. It was 48.5 for the Timberwolves, and they were 49-33 last year. And I would imagine every single person in that organization would call last year a season from hell, right? Just like everyone. Yeah. So like you're basically saying, again,
but they were pretty much healthy, right? Last year,
for sure. That's a domino that we.
And that's baked into some of that. Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing we don't talk about enough, is that they do have a really, really good medical training staff. Like you look at what the 49ers, every week someone else on that team dies. Like the Timberwolves have a really good training staff, elite people, but they do keep them healthy. But health has been on their side for the most part the last couple of years. If that were to, you lose Rudy Gobert for 40 games or something, that would obviously bring that down. But in terms of everyone being healthy entering training camp, I don't really get how the Wolves are projected to, with continuity with all the same guys, just have essentially the same record. Like, I just think full stop, they're a 50-win team. They should expect to be a 50-win team at minimum. And that's 50 in 32. I never look at the West as strong as people think. The top is super heavy, but there's a lot of teams that, I don't know, we'll see this Clippers experiment and they have their own Kawhi thing going on, but like, they brought in a lot of new faces, but they're super veteran heavy. Like, how does that team stack up in early January when it's kind of a grind? I'm not huge on the Lakers moves. And then after that, Golden State has 7 players on their roster and media day starts on Monday. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of, I think, easier games, plus the Eastern Conference is just, you're going to get a lot of wins, I think, this year against the Eastern Conference, because there's not a lot of teams that are fully healthy or leaning into trying to contend. So yeah,
I think that's the strongest case is the East stuff.
A lot of innings.
The West should, right. The West should beat up on the Eastern Conference. It's just lesser than it was, a season ago. You look at the Celtics, no Tatum, the Pacers, no Halliburton, the Bucks, no Damian Lillard. The top there, those would be the teams that you would go into a Wolves regular season matchup against an Eastern Conference team and be like, okay, yeah, they might not be favored to win this game. But there's just fewer of those teams now. I don't know. Cleveland, New York, I don't know. I guess the Knicks would be favored if it was in New York, but the Wolves would be favored if it was in Minnesota. There's just not a lot there. So I think all of the win totals, and maybe I'm sure it's already factored in there, but in my head, I go, yeah, I think we might have a lot of teams that have 50 wins this year in the Western Conference. I think it could be one of those years that the East is, down more than it typically is. So I'll think about it more throughout the preseason and stuff like that, but I'm going into training camp with, I don't know, I guess my number would probably be like 50-32 right now. Not thinking about it very much. I would say the over on that. It is just curious. The Houston piece is really curious to me.
Yep.
Why hasn't that moved? Why hasn't that moved? Their odds of wins, 4 more wins than the Wolves, still post Van Vliet injury. Their odds of coming out of the Western Conference are plus 950, and the Wolves are plus 1100. I like the Houston offseason. Like, I like Houston. I don't get why losing Van Vliet has not had, maybe I just don't know enough about how like betting markets work and I'm not typically tracking this stuff really closely. That's the piece of this that doesn't make sense to me, that the Rockets have noticeably better odds of winning the Western Conference and going to the NBA Finals than the Wolves do. I don't really get that one.
Every time big news like that breaks, Fred VanVleet out for the season, knee injury, I do try to run to my DraftKings app and be like, oh, can I? And I forget that like I'm not as plugged in or as smart as the people that run that stuff. But the Rockets line had been pulled. There was no over/under win total, which is what happens, and they reset it. So I was like, okay, they're going to bring it down. Maybe it'll be 48.5 with Minnesota. And then I checked this morning. It's like, nope, it's still 54.5. It didn't move. And it's like, what the like you. I mean, if you followed Euro basketball this summer, which Rudy Gobert did not play in, which was good, I think. But like Şengün was kind of the star of that thing. So he kind of had the international leap that maybe Ant had last year. So he's going to be, their second best player for the Rockets. And obviously Kevin Durant will be the guy they rely on in the half court and late game stuff. But as we've talked about last week, and then you hit, I think, with every person this week about just the importance of the point guard position. I think Fred VanVleet's so undervalued. Like, I just think he would have been the perfect banana. You kind of saw how he played off of Kawhi in Toronto when they won a title. I thought he was going to be like Kevin Durant's best friend. So to lose him and then be left with, I mean, way less answers at the point guard position than I think even Minnesota has, right? Like, I mean, we all love Amen Thompson, but like they're looking at a former small Kentucky guard that was drafted in the lottery and being like, save us. And at least in Minnesota's case, they have other guys to help Rob out. Reed Shepherd's probably going to be thrown into the deep end. So I think that's crazy. I also would say this pre-Van Vliet injury, I was still kind of like, why is that number so high? OKC with a bullet is in their own tier. And then to me, Denver is like in their own tier as well. Cause I also think they have depth now. Like I forgot that they got Bruce Brown. Like I knew they had Cam Johnson and Tim Hardaway Jr. And then they talked Valanciunas into staying in America. But like then they also got Bruce Brown. Like they have like 10 starters now. So I think that's going to be a team that wins a lot of games. But Wolves Rockets is an inflection point for me because I also too, and maybe I'm drinking blue and green Kool-Aid. I don't know what you think, but I still think the Wolves are a tier above like both LA teams. Don't you?
Yeah, with all of this stuff, like I feel like this is the worst time for me to answer any of these questions. Because one, I haven't been, really following basketball for like the last month all that much. And I like to do it once we get to like kind of right before the season. I've at least read up on the teams, maybe watch some preseason, have an understanding of what they look like. I as of this moment, this is a cop-out answer. I kind of do see it as a big sort of tier below OKC and Denver, but the Wolves at the top of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not that I think the Wolves will win more games than the Lakers. I do, but I don't feel extremely confident about that either. But we'll figure that out as the time comes around. It will also be interesting with Houston and Minnesota. Will both be like a test of using a player more as a hub of your offense rather than a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we know like Amin Thompson will initiate a lot of offense for the Rockets, much like Anthony Edwards will. But the extra point guard lever, I think, for both teams is going to be using Şengün and Randall as like hubs of the offense at the elbow extended, the slot sort of positioning there, as you see with Jokic. And it is a good representation of the evolution of the NBA right now. People absolutely have strong arguments that it's valuable to have a really good point guard and that it's an important position. I'm not arguing that. I'm pointing to the fact that more and more teams are moving away from that and leaning into this, the hub of your offense style of play. So that'll just be, I think it'll be an interesting thing to track if 10 or 20 games into the season, we're like, this is really working for the Wolves, not playing with a traditional point guard all that much, or it's not working. It'll be interesting to compare and contrast, I think, with the Rockets, and that'll probably define who's better, who's figured that out more, the point guard position.
And again, not a gambling pod, but if you do, flirt in that industry, the whole point is trying to find an edge. And to me, the edge is which of those teams, when it comes to win totals specifically, like the Thunder to me and the Nuggets just don't have questions. I know they have a high floor and also a high ceiling. So it's just like probably just hammer those overs. I think the Wolves are far more in that group than they are the Rockets, Clippers, Lakers, because I still think the Wolves floor, if damn near all hell broke loose, other than losing Anthony Edwards all season, knock on wood, is like 45 wins. Where it's like, if the things go really, like if we woke up next week on Tuesday and it's like, hey, Kawhi Leonard's contract has been voided, the Clippers floor is probably in the high 30s or something. You know what I mean? Or if like the Lakers lost Luka, like they could be a lottery team. So I just don't think there's as many questions with a team that, again, flyover country, kind of boring, continuity, running it back, but you know what you're going to get. So why would I not take that edge and bet on the team? It's like, I didn't think a lot of things went well for them last year, and everyone felt like it was toxic at times, and they won 49 games. That's kind of my barometer to be like, okay, I would imagine they'd at least win 50 this season.
Let's look at what Ant's numbers are specifically for his sort of at Prize Picks, more or less than on his stats. You can do Prize Picks in Minnesota. The other, obviously, sports books is not legal here. At Prize Picks, these are, I think, and these are the season long ones. I think they're kind of fun to do. We talked about them, right, with NFL as well. I want to talk about all four of these stat projections for Ant, but I'll just read them all off here to start. His more or less than on points is 27.5 points per game. His three-pointers made is 3.6 threes per game. His rebounds is 5.6, and his assists is 4.5. Let's start with points, 27.5 points per game for Ant. He scored 27.6 per game last season. Why is that number dropped?
Oh, when you sent me the email, my first reaction was less than.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think okay, not to make this a gambling pod, but I would go less than on that, and I would hammer the more than on the assists. Because I think it's Vegas or the CEO of Prize Picks being like, I think this kid is going to continue to score at a high level. But all the data you have right now of like him working on his mid-range, like, does that make you think he's going to take a few less threes? And he's going to take some more twos, and then he's going to facilitate because they have a major hole at point guard, in my opinion. Mike's going to be relied on a lot. They'll probably give Rob some more leash, but like, is he going to go into a 26, 7-4 guy? I also too.
You think so? You think that's what you think?
Well, I also think going back to like, and we'll talk about themes. We kind of did this last week with what we think this season's theme will be, but I'm just calling it 10 starters. Like, I think we're going to go from 8 starters down to Keel. I don't think Rob and Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr., as you've talked with Britt a lot, will always play. But I also think if this team is really good and they do win 54 games and they clean up some of the bullshit at the last, in the final 4 minutes of fourth quarters, maybe Ant's not even playing a lot of those closing things. Like, maybe they're closing with, I guess what I'm baking in is that he becomes more of a playmaker. They win more games and they rely on him to score less. I mean, to go over 27.5 is like, what is your rationale for him? Is he just becoming like the best scorer in the league?
Well, let me loop in the threes one, because
that's good. Yeah.
I think that one's nuts. I think he made 4.1 threes per game last season, and now they have him at 3.6 threes per game. What is the rationale for that? It has to be that they believe he's going to start playing through the mid-range a lot more, right? That would be the number one reason that would go down, right? I can't think of another argument. What would the other argument be?
The only other argument would be in the graphic you sent me that only 3 guys went over that number last season in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like Steph Curry, 4.4 threes per game, Ant 4.1, Malik Beasley 3.9. He's not on a team right now. And then Derek White at 3.5 was 4th. So I think that's a high number. I mean, again, this is like season-long averages is the point of this conversation. And to average over 4 made threes a game, which he did last year, it only takes a couple of those 1 for 9 from 3 games to really submarine your average. But I'm with you on like, maybe we're going too far into, maybe he just at the end of all his workouts this summer took 150 shots in mid-range. Like, maybe we're leaning way too worried about that all of a sudden he's going to try to become 1994 Michael Jordan.
That's my argument.
Okay, that's fair.
I do not think Ant is going to have the license to drastically change his shot diet. Right? I mean, Finch said that in the interview with Britt. Is there going to be more maybe mid-range late in games and in clutch situations? Yeah, I think so. I think there should be. You know what very rarely happened late in games and in clutch situations? Ant making threes. He was not like when he had the one in Houston, the buzzer beater that won the game. But late in games he was taking bad threes and oftentimes missing them. Sure, I would like to maybe make some of those be good 2-point shots. But the majority of this 4.1 or his 4.1 made threes per game last season was a product of the first 43 minutes of every game. I don't think that can or should change, because even if it does a little bit initially, I think Ant will learn that by switching his shot diet from 10 threes down to 6 threes attempted per game, that he will not be scoring as many points per game. And I think that's winning is important to him, but obviously these other stats and stuff are important as well. I lean on these two, especially the threes one, as very much, I would believe it would be more than 3.6 made threes per game. And if I had to choose, I guess a little less confidently, but I would say more than 27.5 points per game as well. I think Anthony Edwards is going to be better at basketball this season. And like, I don't think that's a hot take. Maybe it is some of the like, oh, the guy hit 70 home runs last season. We're not saying they're going to hit 70 home runs again. That probably is the argument. It's like, it's hard to duplicate a really highly productive season, but the players that do duplicate really highly productive seasons in all sports are the ones that are entering their prime and still on the rise as I think Ant is. So I have both of those. Like I would say more than for those two.
Okay, but now let's do like the Charlie Day Always Sunny crime board. Because as we talk this out, okay, so prize picks and like the betting markets in Vegas, they have the Wolves being the same, if not a little worse than last year in terms of record or in terms of chance of coming out of the West. And then prize picks is basically telling you, we think Anthony Edwards is going to score more points, have less assists.
No. They think Ant is going to score less points.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So they basically think all four of those categories are going to come down or basically be stagnant, right? Like his assists, his rebounds. So like they're basically telling you, to answer your question in segment one, that they just think this team and this player specifically, who we've all now graduated from, he's no longer a young kid. Yes, he's 24 in society, but he is a veteran in the NBA. Right. Now, as we talk it out, it makes no fucking sense. You're just telling me that the team that has continuity and the best American basketball player right now in the league, according to the Ringer Top 100 or ESPN's Top 100, that he's just going to stagnate. Right. It's like, you just think he's not going to go from the 7th best player to the 5th? Because that's what these things are telling me. Like, I just, the point, but my rationale and my formula is, maybe I'm leaning too much into what Finch and Britt talked about in those 4 articles, but I just see him becoming like, what do you think they're talking about on Tuesday, August 4th, when Ant comes into the practice facility at 7 a.m. and Finch is there with a coffee? Like, I would imagine they do want him to, like, hey, Shea, Luka, like that is the new model of player in the league, of like full, well-rounded, yes, play defense way better than those guys, but like the playmaking aspect. So the one that I love the most is that assist number, just because we talked about it last week, and we're going to talk about it for the next 82 games in the next 7 months, of like, do they have enough at the point guard? How much is Julius going to take of that? But I still think Ant's going to take a big chunk of that and build off of what was a really good playmaking year for him last year. Like that was a big leap for him. But you don't think Anthony Edwards is going to average 5 assists a game? Like just with a
he averaged 5.1 assists per game 2 years ago.
So like,
I don't get this. I don't get this. The one I'm with you. I would say that we know, right? The logic here is we know that's going to be an intention from the coaching staff to have Ant playmake more. I think it's logical to think that Ant is going to be an improved playmaker this season, as we've seen his, playmaking skills grow fairly linearly over the course of his career. I know the assist number went down a little bit last year, but I don't think Ant got worse at playmaking last season. I think he's, going to get better. And I would say more than 4.5 assists per game too. The one I would argue less than is rebounds. Rebounds aren't sexy. That we know Ant turns it on and off when it comes to rebounding. He said on the record multiple times, we always ask him in a game when he happens to have 12 rebounds per game, he'll say, I remember it was one time last year, he's like, Corliss Williamson, assistant coach last season, challenged me to get double-digit rebounds tonight. And I did, I don't think he always has that internal challenge in himself surrounding rebounding. So I think there's just going to be a volatility. I think there's going to be a lot of games this season where we look at it and go, really, Ant, only 3 rebounds? I need more than that. But I do think that might leave his number at, around 5 rebounds per game or something like that. And then I think a basketball reason would be, what do we know is a huge intention of the Wolves offense to improve this season?
Are you going to say transition?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Basketball for dummies. I had one set up. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, right. Like if that actually is registering that they are getting out in transition and Ant is playing a role in that, he is going to change some of his behavior surrounding when the shot goes up on the defensive side of the floor and the transition into the other side. I think Ant will look to be a hit ahead option more often. You know what I'm saying? And that inherently pulls him out of some rebounding position. And you mix that in with the fact that he's not always a committed rebounder. I could see less than on that. I also think if you're going to play Jaden off the ball a little bit more often this season, where does that put Ant? That's going to give Ant more of a perimeter orientation on the defensive side of the ball where he's out of position. We've seen proof of concept in that with Jaden 100 times over. If he's guarding the point of attack, Jaden, if he's guarding Luka for that game or Shea, or they have a guy like that and he's guarding the ball every time down the floor, what do Jaden's rebounding numbers do? They're lower. If it's a game where they do not have, they have him on Chet as they do against Oklahoma City sometimes. Okay, now Jaden's orientation on defense is going to be closer to the basket to get defensive rebounds. So it's like the inverse of that with Ant. If he is asked, as Finch has said, to be more of a two-way player, to be more of a point of attack defender, to be more committed to that, I think the only part of his game that I could point to basketball reasons for his per game stats going down, or that I would wager on, would be the rebounding portion of that. The other three, to me, seem likely that he exceeds.
Well, I mean, again, he is a superstar, right? And superstars have different expectations than other guys. But I do think it's kind of selfish for us to just expect that every single little bar graph for Anthony Edwards and the creative player, like, is going to go up. Like, we should give him some, like, hey, you don't have to do that. Like, if you do all this other stuff that Finch is asking of you and like that the organization needs you to do, including the leadership stuff, which you talk to anyone, it sounds like that's been one of the biggest strides this summer behind closed doors. You do have to let him like not do something. And in terms of rebounding, like, you know, like, just close your eyes for a second, unless you're driving and listening to this. If he's out there guarding the perimeter or guarding the guy that takes a shot, why can't Jaden, Julius, and Rudy get that rebound? Yes, Ant could go get the rebound and then push, but why not have Ant be, you know, out at the 3-point line? One of the bigs gets the rebound. They hit him with the hit ahead, and now he's in transition with TJ. He's in transition with Rob. He's in transition with Dante.
I guarantee you that's what they want him to do.
Yeah.
I guarantee.
So, I mean, I'm almost telling like not go rebound, because I think in the playoffs, if he can, with extra time in between games, like him rebounding, I think he's awesome at it for his position. It's because he's built like a running back. But if they were trying to, we always talk about adding things to his plate. The plate does at some point run out of space. And it's like, okay, if you become a 6 assists guy and you still shoot, you know, 4 made threes a game and your points are 28 and like you're a great leader and you play better defense, like you don't have to rebound. Like, we got enough guys that can rebound the ball. So I'm with you on that. And I also think too, looping that random little prize pick thing into transition to me is literally the number one thing I can't wait to either ask them about or hear them talk about on media day. Because the more you think about it, I mean, you kind of made a great point. Like, I think transition for Anthony Edwards is like his diet, where, like, remember when we got to meet him and he was on Zoom and he was ordering Popeyes and he ate like shit? Someone finally got in his ear and was like, hey man, if you just eat healthier, you like can run longer and you're more athletic and your body just, I think transition's the same way. I think if someone explained to him, if you just run a little more in transition, you're going to get 8 more free points and you're going to get to the line. And know you love to score. So I think if someone can tell him or show him like, this is actually kind of low hanging fruit for you, you just have never done it. Can I say one thing about the Brit and Finch thing that I thought was fascinating? I don't know if this is the right time for it, but transition made me think about it. We've been doing this for like 9 years, and I don't know, we have all these tools now, right? And we have all these like net ratings and points per possession. We have all these stats, and it's like, I feel because of you, like, that I'm a smarter basketball analyst. And then Chris Finch just drops that the Minnesota Timberwolves last year were top 5 in backwards passes. That was the coolest fucking stat I've ever heard. And it was also like triggering, because it's like, yeah, I mean, you and I played YBL and I've coached some basketball. It's like when they would get the rebound, all of the guys that like touching the ball would run back to get the basketball. And that's like, we're like, why were they so bad at transition? Go watch a game in January. Rudy would get a rebound and Nikhil and Mike and Ant and Julius would all run to him to get the basketball, and then they would pass it backwards. Or how many times did they have to kick it back out with 7 seconds on the shot? I thought that was truly the most basketball for dummies stat ever, and also like explained their offensive woes and transition and the half court of like, yeah, man, a lot of times they just threw the ball backwards. And that's like the worst thing you can do. Like Finch said, that's good for soccer, not basketball. So that stat.
The only time it's good is when Julius, not only time, but the best time to throw a backwards pass, or the time it would be profitable. Julius drives all the way down, like to the basket, 2 defenders come, and it's the kick out pass. Those should be the only backwards passes, because that's a good backwards pass. You're creating an open three-point shot there. Yeah. Rudy like grabbing it, taking 1 or 2 dribbles or something like that, turning around, passing it to Mike Conley, and then Mike Conley barely gets it across half court before the 8 seconds is up. Yeah, no more of that. That can't be.
If you go watch any old game from last season, most of the time that anyone got a defensive rebound, half or over half of the team's first step was backwards. It was to go get the basketball. And Finch and Britt really detailed that. Again, that's the greatest piece of literature we have as Timberwolves fans every season. But they really talked about, like, if you have, I think he referenced the hierarchy, having that hierarchy of like, hey, Ant and Julius and Mike are all on the court, but now they talk about like all the rules they have. I mean, there's so much game planning that goes in behind the scenes that we never hear about. But like, yeah, if Mike and Julius and Ant are all out there and they all see each other, them knowing now of like, hey, if Mike's out here, he always gets the ball, right? So like, don't even go backwards for it, just take off. And Mike will either find you in transition, or maybe Rudy will become kind of a little bit more of a throw ahead outlet guy. So I had to bring that up because it was like the dumbest stat ever that also pretty much summed up the 24-25 Timberwolves.
Right. What's your favorite of the 4 prize picks ones? If you have to say one of these 4 on Ant, I'm most confident on.
Like, I would probably honestly bet my life on more than 4.7 assists.
Okay.
I think he's going to become I think he's going to lean even more into playmaking, because I think if he is a dominant playmaker that also has developed a go-to spot for late in games, or a go-to couple spots, they're all summer, whether they want to admit it or not. I don't think this team and this organization is trying to build one roster to beat the Thunder, but they're talking about it. They're talking about it all summer because they know that to probably get to where they want to go and to kind of crack that new ceiling, they have to beat the Thunder. And I think Ant has to play more like Luka than play like, I don't know, a hyped up Devin Booker.
I'm going to say the threes one. I'm going to say more than 3.6 threes.
Okay.
I don't see his made threes dropping by 12% per game. That's what that number.
And you also think the volume will stay relatively the same?
Relatively, yeah.
Okay.
And it would have to for him to continue to make this. He'd all of a sudden made like 50% of his threes. I don't think that's super likely, but yeah, I don't. It would hurt the Wolves the lower that number gets, and I think Finch and in time Ant would adjust accordingly to make the decision that's better for winning. That drove so much of last season's success, was Anthony Edwards being the best 3-point shooter on high volume in the league outside of Steph Curry. That can't go away. If he doesn't have more than 3.6 made threes per game, I think worse about this team this season. That's like a couple wins to me.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? As always, something going on over at Prize Picks. As a reminder, to put together a lineup at Prize Picks, all you need to do is put 2 or more picks in your lineup to win. There's a bunch of these are just the Anthony Edwards season long ones, but there's a bunch over there at Prize Picks, other teams, other players. Kyle and I did a bunch of them for NFL season long stuff, and it's just kind of fun to be tracking over the course of time. If you don't have a Prize Picks account, create an account and use the promo code Dane. When you sign up, you will receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks.com, Prize Picks app. You can use the promo code Dane when creating your account. All right, Kyle, we have some other odds set on the awards, right? Anthony Edwards, MVP, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, Naz Reid, Sixth Man of the Year, Finch, Coach of the Year, Terrence Shannon Jr. is on there for Most Improved Player. What, just like odds aside, and you had to say one of those things happen, Ant wins MVP, Rudy wins Defensive Player of the Year, Naz wins Sixth Man, Finch Coach of the Year, or Shannon Most Improved Player. Which of those do you think is most likely to happen?
It's not even close, and it's Anthony Edwards MVP. Because first of all, I looked this up. He was 12-1 last year. I think he had the Olympic Team USA bump. I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure I bet that. And I lost. So for him to be 20-1 really cements the first 40 minutes of this. They just think the Timberwolves are running it back in a boring way that's going to not be all that exciting. They're going to win 48 games and kind of be mid for better or worse. But also some of that is narrative of, I think you're already kind of seeing it with how Shams talked about him studying Michael Jordan film and Kobe film. I think those awards, a lot of times, whether you like it or not, because of the people that vote on them are in the media, I think they're narrative based. I think hell would freeze over before Rudy Gobert would win another Defensive Player of the Year, just because I think they're tired of it. I don't think Chris Finch can win Coach of the Year unless they win the West, because he's been coaching for a while. Typically, that's, if the Hornets go 44-38 this year, their coach is probably going to win it. And then the most improved stuff, like I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be really improved. But for him to win that award, he would, if Terrence Shannon Jr. won Most Improved Player award, I would imagine he's starting by game 65.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
You know what I mean? It's not that he has some flashy dunks and stuff. It's no, dude, he has to be putting up 16 and 6. And I think he's going to be, of that young trio of him, Rob, and Jalen Clark, I do think Terrence will have the longest leash and the most run early, but I don't think it's enough to, if you look at some of the other guys that are in that category, like I think Tyler Hero has better odds. And it's well, okay, that doesn't really make any sense. But yeah, right. So I think without a doubt it is kind of then builds back into how do you think this team does? Because I think if the Wolves finish second in the West, which let's say is 56 wins, it's probably because Ant's top 2 or 3 in MVP, as we've talked about all month. So that one to me is the best value, or you just lean into the Timberwolves at 20-1 to win the finals.
So Ant is, what I'm seeing here on FanDuel, is 25-1 to win MVP, and Naz Reid is 10-1 to win Sixth Man of the Year. Are you saying you think Ant is a better bet, or do you think it's more likely that Ant wins MVP than Naz wins?
I think Naz Reid will lose votes in Sixth Man of the Year because Dante DiVincenzo will have a couple hot months and they'll cannibalize each other.
Okay, I could hear that. I think I would still take. I mean, Naz has the best odds. Maybe it's just me being a nit, but Naz 10-1 for Sixth Man of the Year. It's the second best odds in the league, only behind DeAndre Hunter there. Ant for MVP. Shea is 1.5-1. Jokic is 3.5-1. Doncic is 3.8-1. Giannis is 12-1. Wemby is 12-1, and Ant is 25-1. So sixth in MVP odds there. I get the top 4 guys, and then I think it's kind of, like you said, narrative and stuff. Wemby, because he's Wemby, might just get a bunch of votes for that reason. I think Ant's goal should be to be on the ballot. Or maybe that's even required to have a season that's really a step forward. And I think the ballot goes to 5 guys. So being 5th in MVP voting, or maybe if one of those top guys, knock on wood, get hurt, you move up to 4th or something like that. That's obviously the most impactful one to have there. I think with Rudy though, man, don't hate it. I don't hate 100-1 odds on Rudy Gobert to win Defensive Player of the Year. Wemby, it would require Wemby getting hurt. So that's, you probably got to factor that in there. Wemby's -185 to win Defensive Player of the Year. But Chet Holmgren is 6.5-1 and Rudy Gobert is 100-1. I think Rudy Gobert is a better defender than Chet Holmgren. I think Rudy Gobert is more impactful of a defender than Chet Holmgren is. I think almost everybody in the league would argue the same thing. Now the voting is, as you pointed out, which is the better point.
Your guy Kendrick Perkins has a vote, and he voted for Anthony Edwards in the Clutch Award last year, and Minnesota was ass in the 4th quarter in clutch time. You know what I mean? So, but you're right. You're talking about this from a basketball perspective, And sadly, I'm trying to remind people that that's not always how these awards are fully developed.
Dude, 100 to 1 is crazy though.
I'm with you. I mean, you know what's crazier than 100 to 1 is the fact that someone is minus odds to win defensive player. What that's saying is if Victor Wembanyama plays the minimum amount of games,
he's winning.
He's just going to be given the award. And that's why I think it's kind
I
of
agree with that.
Yeah, I'm probably with you. I mean, he is. It would be kind of cool. I mean, I've loved his offseason and he's been overseas and he's like doing monk stuff. Like I'm a Wemby fan. It would be cool if he did something though. Like, I don't know, like year 3, Ant made the playoffs as an 8 seed. Like it would be cool if this year, if like Wemby hit all those things, because I do find it disrespectful to be like he has significantly better odds to win MVP than Ant. When I don't know if that's, I mean, what would the Spurs record have to be for Wemby to like year 3, Anthony Edwards, they're 42-40. Like if the Spurs were 42-40 and they won the play-in and they're the 8 seed, like is he going to win MVP? No, they'd have to win 49 games, and they're not going to win 49 games. So I think that's absurd. I think the Ant Wemby thing is kind of my barometer of like Wemby just gets a lot of love, and Ant for some reason just continues to kind of fall in some of these projections.
That piece is surprising to me. I don't really understand that because Ant is cool, and everybody would say that, and Ant is.
But it might be that edge that I was talking about. Like I really do think this season, depending on like what happens with the Lakers, because that's kind of its own thing. I think the NBA, for better or worse, whether you agree or not, they are trying to find like that American-born face of the league stuff. I mean, the Thunder won the title, and I haven't really heard anyone doing major interviews with Chet Holmgren this summer or Shea. Like they're kind of quiet. I think they want Ant to be that guy. And if his team is crushing wins and eating innings during the regular season, I think he's going to lean more into that. And someone's going to want to vote for Anthony Edwards at some point because of his charisma, his leadership, his basketball skill. Sure. And I think that's why at 20-25 to 1, it's like, if it's not this year, I think next year, barring any sort of cataclysmic injury, like next year, he's going to be like 8 to 1. So this might be the edge in the window of like, just throw something on there because those odds don't match with reality.
Terrence Shannon Jr., 27th in most improved odds. He has the same odds as Nimi Keita to win most improved.
Who he played for?
Improved player. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. And then Finch is 18th in Coach of the Year, 35 to 1, tied with Thomas Yasalo from Memphis.
Who he coached for. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Memphis, and Keita is on the Celtics. I mean, I don't know. Like, what if the Wolves are the 1 seed in the West? Is that out of the realm of possibilities here? I mean, maybe, again, now we're talking about maybe baking in some injuries or something really bad happening to the Thunder, like we were talking about with Wemby to open up Ant's MVP odds. I don't know. You scroll down the 17 guys who have better odds than Finch, and I'm like trying to like write the story that gets them Coach of the Year, and Finch having not won Coach of the Year before. If everything clicks in place with this team, it will have been completely in his vision, which is Julius Randle, a belief in Julius Randle and maximizing Julius Randle. And if Julius Randle has some type of crazy good year, while Anthony Edwards is a legitimate MVP candidate and the Wolves are towards the top of the NBA, I think Finch is at least in that conversation. I'm just saying, I was surprised how far I had to scroll to find Chris Finch's Coach of the Year odds.
2 years ago when Mark Daignault won it, Oklahoma City finished tied with the Nuggets at 57-25, and Daignault won it. The Wolves finished 1 game behind. I thought Chris Finch should have won that award that year. I really do, because they had kind of come out of nowhere. They had, you were talking about the Julius experiment year too. Like they had done this 2 bigs experiment, and he coaches the worst franchise in NBA to 56-26. I think Finch literally should have won it that year. And I kind of said that at the time. I was like, I think he got robbed. I just honestly, as much as I am a Chris Finch fan and stan, I think he'll never win Coach of the Year. Because what you said makes sense, but it's like, wouldn't the national narrative be like, well, this team made the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. They would have to win like 68 games for him to get, like, if they do go 56 and whatever 82 minus that is, people are just going to make, well, yeah, it's a good team and they're supposed to do that. They've been in the Final Four. I literally think, in my opinion, 18th best odds is kind of, I guess, a joke. But I think of all the future things that try to dictate what this season could be, I actually think Chris Finch winning Coach of the Year is the worst bet.
Okay.
In my opinion.
I could hear that. Yeah, I don't know. These are all be sort of interesting to track, or maybe think more about. Maybe they'll move a little bit over the course of the preseason. But yeah, it's just a theme in general, like you're saying, that everything just feels a little bit lower than I would have guessed here.
I think whoever finishes 4th in the Eastern Conference, their coach will win Coach of the Year. Like, that's a little hot take. Like, I think whoever can sneak the final spot of home court in the playoffs, an Eastern Conference that has no Celtics probably and no Pacers, like, that's who's going to get it. Like, oh my God, they, like the Magic, whoever's coaching them right now, they won 52
I think he has
games.
The best odds, actually.
See, there you go. I know ball. But yeah, I do think, again, and then like the Terrence one, I think we all think he's going to have a really good opportunity to have an expanded role. But to get most improved player, I mean, they sometimes give that to like established lottery picks that have a bad year. So I don't think he has a chance at that.
Oh, I don't hate 100 to 1 on Rudy. That might be my favorite bet. It's 100. I'm not saying
that's fair. That's fair. I will sprinkle some Dane Moore dollars on that after this. But I just think that it would take a lot of people writing Rudy Gobert's name in, and I just don't. I almost think he's like blacklisted from winning the award.
No, you're being smart. You're factoring in the narrative stuff in ways that I'm not, and it's a voted on award. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about you coming back into town for Wolves Fest. You're going to be here Monday, Tuesday next week for Media Day, and Kyle and I will do a pod right after Media Day with just some immediate takeaways from that on Monday, and then we're going to do a pod with Alan Horton, new TV play-by-play voice of the Wolves, in addition to Grady. But then you're going to come back again in about 3 more weeks for Wolves Fest, which is October 18th at Falling Knife Brewing Company. We're going to, as we have for the past few years, we'll do this big. Hopefully, we'll be outside if the weather permitting, and just kind of hang out at Falling Knife from 3 to 9 p.m. and we'll do the pod from 5 to 6 p.m. Your thoughts?
I was texting our friend Mike O'Hagan about this. And you had said last year at times, like, this is not a fun season to cover. And you were right. Like, it had just been so toxic, and it did finish strong. And then they go back to the Western Conference Finals. I wasn't, the Karl Anthony Towns trade kind of nuked it for me last year too. And I think it was more so the timing, but it was also the fact of, like, if you are a fan or if you've followed this team for a long enough time, you embraced, a player being loyal to what we've now deemed multiple times as like flyover country in the NBA. I say that because I've never been more excited for a season. Like, I really do think all the people you talk to that are just sitting in the gym in the summer, and all the guys that have stuck around, which again is commonplace now, but it still is new to me as a lifelong Timberwolves guy, because everyone just bailed as soon as Game 82 was done. The vibes seem really great. I don't want to bury the lead here. We'll talk to him more on Tuesday, but like, the Alan Horton thing got me excited because that man deserved. I've done radio with him, and he is basically like Anthony Edwards without 4 teammates. Like, he has to play center and small forward and point guard. It's an incredible job, and I think him and Jim are going to crush it. Still have Grady. And then I'd be lying if I said that this is like the 6th podcast you published in the last 7 days. The content is so good. So I'm really excited because, as I said last week, there's really no more, knock on wood, Tim Conley, don't do anything tonight, but there's really no more excuses. Like, this team knows what they want to be. They're not trying to redefine themselves. I think Finch hammered home as many times as possible. They're trying to kind of like detail oriented, like, again, I'm painting the garage, Dane, but just touching up the specs. Like, how do we make this project finish? Like, how do we touch up the corners? They're not trying to repaint, the ceiling. So I'm really excited for this. I think Media Day is going to be a really good opportunity because, again, there's no ownership drama. There's no Rosas, like, to get real basketball answers from some of these guys of like, okay, Dante, year 2, you were public about how tough last year was. How much better do you feel? And I tie all of that into what John wrote on The Athletic Friday morning with Julius Randle. Like, for a lot of people still, when they tune in their sports team, it's about wins, losses, and transactions. And I guess in the grand schemes of things, that's how the needle is moved. But I try to hammer home all the behind the scenes stuff that you and I hear about, because that's how the needle gets moved. And to hear Julius Randle call a place like Flyover Country home after coming from New York, like, I think all of those guys, it's going to be easier for Finch and Micah and Elston and all the coaches to get them focused on sacrificing to win games and sacrifice. Everyone's been paid, as everyone has noted now. So I don't know. I'm just really, really excited about this. And I'd be honest, I wasn't that excited about it a year ago on this date leading into media day. So
Right. No, and Wolves Fest is always kind of like, it feels like it kicks it off.
Yep, for sure.
Right before, so it's the Saturday right before the Wolves play their first game on Wednesday in Portland, or Thursday in Portland, whatever, 22nd in Portland. So we'll have been able to like gather the 3 weeks of training camp information. We'll have seen all the preseason games, and by then our thoughts will have kind of, I don't know, narrowed into what we believe this season is going to look like. And it's fun to be able to be around Wolves fans and answer questions and stuff like that, like we do like we will at Wolves Fest. I'm doing one for John's show on Saturday at Head Flyer, and it's good to get the energy going. And the Falling Knife guys are extremely supportive of us and just want to do cool things. I didn't send it to you, but we're doing the Dane Moore pod beer again. Second Apron's coming back. Dan sent me the label, for what it's going to look like on the can. It's going to be cool. It's going to be cool this year. So, and Second Apron, the beer is like getting packaged the day before that and all that. So they'll have Second Apron beer on tap at Wolves Fest, and you can buy, if you want to, you can buy some of the cans and stuff to bring home to keep or to drink or whatever. It's a fun thing for us. And we're big fans of the Falling Knife guys. Obviously they support this pod as advertisers, but we want to just be supportive of them as people and as a place that legitimately cares about the Wolves and creating a Wolves sort of home base that frankly they've already done. If you look at the playoffs and how many people are there outside on the TV truck watching those games. So I'm really proud actually that we've helped cultivate some of that. And I feel like the live shows we do there are always a representation of that. So just want to talk with you a little bit about it. Again, October 18th, 3 to 9 p.m., bunch of like Wolves pop-ups and stuff like that. The Nasri tattoo guy is going to be there amongst other Wolves themed pop-ups. And we'll be doing the pod at 5 o'clock. So wanted to let y'all know that before we wrapped this one up. What else you got? Anything else miscellaneous before Media Day, Kyle?
I just feel like the paint fumes are fully in my brain because I missed the mark of, you're like, hey, why don't you promote Wolves Fest? And I was like, let me tell you how I feel about the Timberwolves in Media Day. No, Wolves Fest is going to be awesome. And again, Britt's 4-piece thing with Finch does always kick off. Like that is when you got the school supply list back in the day, you went to Target with your mom. Like that is to me like, okay, here's the school supply list of like, here's what I kind of need to focus on or talk about. And then Media Day kicks off. But for us, Wolves Fest, I'm literally bringing friends from Portland. Like I think that's going to be a massive, massive event. And again, anywhere you look, I just think this is the golden age of Timberwolves basketball. And I think you're going to see some cool stuff for fan experience this year. We're going to be doing more live shows all throughout the state. And you've got an NBA Jam console in the background. Like you've got a studio. So I'm proud of you and all the growth you've done. So it's the most exciting time for me that I've ever had, but also because I can see the comments already that like, I'm not that excited for this year. If you are down on this team, I think what's exciting is if it doesn't meet expectations, and this will be something I'll hammer you with all season after they lose a game, but like if they don't if they don't become a 50-win team, like you and I said, and Ant's not on the ballot and Chris Finch isn't a top 14 voted coach in the league, I think they're going to make seismic moves next summer. And we're not talking about that now, but I just think that like this is the final iteration of what they think. And if it doesn't work, Tim Conley has shown time and time again that right before you pull up to Media Day, he'll ship someone out and they'll pivot and they'll find a point guard or they'll reinvest in a different player. So Yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting season. And officially for this organization, it kicks off on Monday when we get to talk to everyone, including Johan Berenger.
And Tim Conley. You know,
Yeah, good
we're
point.
talking about this Brit piece being so valuable because it gives us an insight, a really strong insight into what Chris Finch is thinking about the upcoming season. I'm interested to hear from Connolly and his thoughts on this. I mean, he's the one who built this team. He's the one who opted to lean into continuity and pay everybody and believes in this. You know, obviously we get why he did, but it'll be good to hear from him there too. It just, there's always something, right? You know, whenever these people who rarely talk, you're always like, ooh, didn't know that, or oh, that's a good thing to get down on the record. So I'm with
And
you.
the last
I'm
time you
excited.
talked to him was exit interviews, the little stand-up interview thing, and that's when he kind of talked about like, hey, we don't want to be a second apron team. And then it kind of flushed out, you know, throughout the summer, and you know, they didn't go make a big point guard splash. They didn't sign Malcolm Brogdon or something like that. So yeah, I think
he shows his cards too in his answers. Like Rob, when the night then they drafted Rob Dillingham, you know, he give which I just appreciate from both Conley and Finch. You know, there's always a little coach speak and PR mixed into anytime like mics and cameras are in front of people, but I've covered a lot of different coaches and stuff over the years, and just even, you know, going to other teams' press conferences and stuff like that, where we are lucky to have, you know, Finch and Conley to have, you know, to give us this, right? To give us information that selfishly we can use for podcasts, but also it's, it leads us, like I said this to Britt, I was like, it leads us down an actual real path and not one that you and I just create ourselves of like, this is what the plan is, you know? It's good when they tell us on the record what the plan is.
Two random other little things I had on my end. One, circumscribed. That was a new word for me. I did not read that as that. I was misreading that word in those 4 pieces by Britt. And then number 2 is what you just said. Like, you and I try to come up with topics in August and September, and now it's like, hey, why don't the Wolves kind of tell us, or Chris Finch or Tim Conley tell us what the topics will be? And one of my topics that I'm curious to get into on Monday, after you hear about all these guys have been in the lab in Minneapolis all summer long, I've just kind of always said, like, my stupid gap year last year, been like, hey, they got 10 guys that should play, and Johan Berenger is not one of them. That's not what I hear now. I've heard he has been awesome. Jim Pete has been pretty much, he did a pod with our guys, Ryan Eichten and Leo Sun. Is like, he catches everything. These workouts, he looks incredible. So that's another kind of wrinkle to throw into my brain as I'm starting to think about this season, is like, I had 10 guys, and Finch even said he wants to play 9. Can he get to 10? I thought Berenger would not be in the picture. And it's like, if you add 11th ingredient into that recipe, it's going to be, we're going to be fighting about rotations for the next 6 months. I think that's a little prediction I have. So
I saw Berenger the other night. He's bigger. Like, he looks like he put on, which would make sense.
I'm irrationally excited about him. So we'll see.
Baby baguette. Yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm really excited for you to be here for Media Day, to hear from all of them. And like I said, Kyle and I will do an immediate reaction pod after that, and we'll have Alan on the next day, and then we'll keep rolling. And every week, the plan is to have, you know, all the guests that were on this week, and to keep it rolling. So yeah, I guess the next 2 pods will be with Kyle as well, but then we'll get Chris and Britt and Jason, all the guys.
Get rid of me.
You go back to Portland. No, it's going to be fun, man. I'm excited. We'll get this thing rolling. Thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, I mean, we all thank you as well. I know you and I are friends and partners in this, but like, this is the 6th Dane Moore pod in 7 days, and all on YouTube now, and you have a cool studio. So I think the plan this year, as the team gets better, as we've always said, why not lean into more content? So I think you're going to try to keep up. Is my best advice. Like, there's going to be a lot of Dane Moore pods in the feeds. So thanks to everyone, as always, who supported us this summer when it gets kind of lean. But yeah, by the next time you hear from you and I, like, the sprint kind of begins on Monday morning, downtown Minneapolis.
And I should have said this at the beginning. We'll do it next week. But part of the reason why we're doing more pods is Kyle is going to be doing 2 pods a week with me.
Oh, yeah, we should have started with that, so Reddit would know.
We'll do that on. Yeah,
Put that in the
I
notes.
would know. Yeah. Which is, I mean, I'm excited for that too. We'll still keep our Friday pods like these, but then we'll sprinkle Kyle in on Tuesdays as well to get you doing 2 episodes a week. Last year you were doing one of those with Flagrant Howls, and this year I said no. I'm here. So I'm excited to have a lot of you in the feed as well. Thank you for doing this today. Obviously, you guys can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Tiggy, and you'll hear more of him on Monday after Media Day. Until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.